Have journalists been banned from the White House under the Trump administration?
Have journalists been banned, or have they brought in alternative media that presents a different
I'm not talking about
angle?
Have journalists from organisations like the Associated Press been banned by the White House, yes or no?
Yes, they have.
Right. Have judges been threatened with impeachment
wait a minute.
because the White House doesn't like their rulings?
Wait a minute. Let's not do it that way. Let's go back to that. And
yes.
Why were they? Why were they?
Sometimes all it takes is one simple question to completely destroy an argument. And that's exactly what happened here. An ex-Trump advisor came into this interview sounding confident, but the second she got pressed for actual facts, the entire thing started falling apart in real time. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Let's get into it.
It's funny that you think that he's taking a dig. Do you not think that when an 82-year-old man is arrested for posting something on Facebook, that is not a form of censorship?
Well, it depends what he posts, doesn't it? It depends if it's legal.
Well,
what did that 82-year-old man post?
Well, let's back up a minute here. If we are starting to scrutinize everything that someone says, if we're arresting them because it is hate speech.
What is the? You mentioned a specific case there. What is it this 82-year-old was arrested for?
Honestly, I can't remember, but what I do remember...
You're telling me that it's outrageous that an 82-year-old man was...
Back up a minute.
No, sorry, this is important because you just said this is an example of free speech under threat in the UK, but you can't tell me what he was arrested for.
I don't remember the
So why you bring it up then?
I brought it up as an example that if we are scrutinizing what an 82-year-old man posts on Facebook...
But you can't assess that without knowing what he said, can you?
Well, you know what? Let's just say I brought up a wrong example because I don't have the context
Could it possibly
right
be
now.
because it's all a load of nonsense and free speech isn't under threat in the UK at all, which I think you've just demonstrated respectfully?
You know what? I've been there I've lived in the UK for 24 years. And yes, I do believe that censorship, it started with political correctness.
Right.
And as political correctness moved from accusing people of microaggressions and then people getting triggered over what somebody said, it has been a form of putting a speech straitjacket on people.
So what can't you say in the UK right now without being arrested that you think people should have the right to say?
You know what? That's a very good question.
It is. Thank you.
It is. I can't answer that question, and I can't give you an example exactly. But see,
so
what I find
interesting. Sorry, Jane. You've given me an example of free speech being under threat. You can't tell me what the person said.
Well,
I've asked you for one single thing that you can't say in the UK without the fear of being arrested, and you can't think of anything. It's because Britain still is a country, compared to the United States, by the way, where free speech absolutely exists and always will.
Well, we both see it differently then.
But you can't give me any single point of evidence whatsoever to back up your idea.
Why don't you give me an example of how free speech still exists and censorship is not there?
Because you don't get arrested by the police for saying anything that isn't incitement or hate speech in this country. People are free to express their opinions. People are free to give their views. We do not have a police state in this country, unlike, I might say, the way that the United States is going under Donald Trump.
Well, you know, that's interesting because it's not going that way with Donald Trump. It was going that way, and it's now reversing itself.
Right. So banning journalists from the White House because you don't like what they've written, demanding the impeachment of judges because you don't like what they've ruled, sacking government officials because they've dared to criticise you at any point in recent years, defunding universities because they're not doing what you do, threatening law firms if they don't toe the party line, defunding media organisations that you think are against you, arresting students because of what they've written on social media, and ramping up checks of people entering the UK to check they haven't posted anything on Facebook that you don't like, doesn't amount to any sort of attack on free speech.
That's really twisting things without the
That's the
specific
facts.
examples. You're giving
They're facts.
no. You're giving examples the same way I gave the example
But you
of
didn't
the
give any
82-year-old
examples, and I've just given
man.
you 10.
No, you've just given me a very biased perspective.
Bias is facts. All of those things have happened. Which of those haven't happened? Have journalists been banned from the White House under the Trump administration?
Have journalists been banned, or have they brought in alternative media that presents a different
I'm not talking about
angle?
Have journalists from organisations like the Associated Press been banned by the White House? Yes or no?
Yes, they have.
Right. Have judges been threatened with
But wait a
impeachment
minute.
because the White House doesn't like their rulings?
Wait
Yes
a
or
minute.
no?
Let's not do it that way. Let's go back to
Because the
that.
answer's
And
yes.
why were they? Why were they banned?
But so we accept. Right? Are we accepting that all the things I just suggested have happened?
If you don't let me finish, then we can't really have a conversation here, because you've got a very biased perspective
I'm not
here,
biased at all.
very angle.
I'm giving you facts, and I'm just asking whether you recognise that those things are true.
You know what? It's so interesting. Did we not have a bunch of fake news here? And in the U.S., we did. And why? Why did we have fake news? Because it was biased and it was wrong. And so that is one of the reasons. You know, you're listing 10 things and cutting me off.
Right.
But then why was the Associated Press no longer welcome? Because they gave fake news that has been proven.
But Jen, you coming on the national radio station here on LBC and saying an 82-year-old man being arrested is an attack on free speech without having a clue what he's actually said is not fake news at all.
It's not that I haven't had a clue. I can't remember the specifics.
Right.
But the fact that
But how can you know it's an
police
attack on free speech if you can't remember what he'd actually said?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because you started this off by saying J.D. Vance had a dig. And so we don't get to have an intelligent discussion about whether there really is censorship going on, if people are afraid to speak out.
But he has had a dig, and that's his own language. He said previously when he talked about the UK...
No, you called it a dig.
What makes this whole exchange so brutal is that this wasn't some random person getting caught off guard. This was a former Trump advisor, someone presented as an expert, someone clearly used to going on television and defending these talking points. And yet the second she was asked to back up her claims with actual specifics, everything completely unraveled. That's the pattern people are getting tired of. Big dramatic claims about censorship, attacks on freedom, and the so-called collapse of free speech. But when someone calmly asks, okay, what exactly are you talking about? Suddenly there's no answer. Just vague accusations, deflection, and talking in circles. And honestly, the irony here is impossible to ignore. While Trump allies constantly lecture other countries about free speech, critics point to what's happening in the United States itself. Media organizations being targeted, journalists pushed out, universities pressured over political issues, public critics attacked online, and growing hostility toward protest movements and dissenting voices. That's why this interview landed so hard. The reporter didn't yell, he didn't interrupt endlessly, he just kept asking for evidence. One clear example. And somehow, that was too much. By the end of the conversation, the entire argument collapsed under its own weight. And it perfectly captures why so many political interviews today feel less like debates and more like reality checks. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.